Hey guys, this is LD, and I'd like to say a quick thank you to Florian from Esports Stories for this awesome project. Florian and I worked on this video since September 2017, so I hope you guys will enjoy part one of my story. Part two is coming out soon.
Esports Stories presents The Story of LD Part 1. LD, whose real name is David Gorman, was born on the 3rd of June, 1986 in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. His father, Robert, practiced law, and his mother, Mary Ann, owned a store that sold collectible dolls. David was the first to be born, followed by his three siblings, Michael, Danielle, and Allie. Born and raised in Philadelphia, he developed a fondness for gaming at an early stage of his life. At the age of 6, David and his even younger brother Michael would play every single game they could get their hands on. The Super Nintendo Entertainment System, SNES for short, had only been on the North American market for around a year when David's parents decided to buy one for the kids. One of my earliest memories of my childhood is staying up way too late playing Secret of Mana with my brother. Secret of Mana was also the game that got David and Michael caught up in late-night sessions, which resulted in their parents grounding them and banning them from playing any games for 2 months. Danny wanted to join her older brothers David and Michael in their gaming sessions, and also participate in playing Secret of Mana. The game had multiplayer capabilities and supported up to 3 players, but there were only 2 controllers in the Gorman household, so they gave one controller to Danny, and David and Michael took turns playing with the second controller. The twist was, Danny's controller was not plugged in, and instead of Danny controlling her character, a bot would jump in. This scenario went on for a week until one night, Danny finally figured out that her brothers were taking the mickey out of her. She realized that she was not actually playing. Like any other young child, Danny got super upset, threw a tantrum, and started screaming and crying in the middle of the night. Natalie, who worked as an au pair for the family and slept in a room adjacent to the living room, woke up and found the kids playing games in the middle of the night. She reported the whole incident to their parents. The bitter consequence: 2 months of no gaming for David and Michael. Apart from console gaming, David also had access to a computer from an early stage. His mom, who worked as an accountant before opening her store, was extensively experienced with computers and was able to program a custom operating system so that David could choose all his favorite games from a menu. To name just a few of them: Maniac Mansion, The Secret of Monkey Island, and the Indiana Jones games. Alongside gaming, David also got into playing soccer, baseball, and basketball from an early age. In matters of soccer, he eventually joined the Travel Soccer Squad, a team specially designed for players over the age of 9 that possessed the interest and ability to compete at a higher level. David had a strong ambition to improve and develop his soccer skills, but also had to face the downsides of being extremely short and skinny. However, David compensated for these scrappy handicaps with fortitude and a never-give-up mentality. I was probably not one of the most talented soccer players, but definitely one of the hardest working, if not the hardest working one. As mentioned earlier, David also got into baseball and played in the Little League as the third batter. David and his father Robert regularly played catch in the backyard of their house. A memory of one of these days has stuck in David's head right up to the present day. His father threw the ball, but for some reason, the ball missed David's baseball mitt. I think the sun was in my eyes or I blinked at the wrong time. As a result, the baseball hit David right in his face and gave him a really bad black eye. As soon as David's mom saw the eye, she rushed David to the hospital, and they checked in at the accident and emergency room. Strange to say, they separated David from his mom and started to asking her questions. The hospital staff thought that David had suffered some form of physical abuse and felt it to be their duty to clarify what happened. Needless to say, it all turned out fine, and they left the hospital together. But David recalls, "From this day on, I was always afraid of the ball, and this fear prevented me from becoming very good at baseball." As David transitioned into his teenage years, he started to become an engaged PC gamer and began to play games like StarCraft, Command & Conquer, Team Fortress Classic, Half-Life, and Age of Empires 2. In November 2000, after a 4-month-long beta phase, Counter-Strike was released and David sunk his teeth into the game. But instead of enjoying the game only as an individual or casually at home, David began to get into competitive online gaming. David and his friends at Morristown High School would not only train and try to improve their aim, but also come together in their high school study hall to draw out Counter-Strike maps, discuss tactics, and determine who would take on which role. David envied his friends Will and Brian, who already had cable internet, while he still had to play with super slow dial-up connection. The internet access was established by dialing a telephone number on a conventional telephone line, and the computer used a separate modem to encode and decode information into and from audio frequency signals, respectively. So, from the very beginning of David's Counter-Strike fanaticism, he would try to use every given situation to convince his parents to buy and install a cable internet connection. However, his wish was denied until Christmas 2001. A little envelope from Comcast would be one of the best Christmas presents ever. I was finally getting cable internet. This Christmas present allowed David to increase his online gaming activity, even though his parents wanted him to do more extracurricular work like sports. So, they set up a rule to limit the hours David spent playing video games, in order for him to have enough time for his homework and other things like soccer. Their old kitchen timer was converted into David's gaming timer. He was allowed to play 2 hours a day and was not supposed to start playing until all of his homework was done. As you can imagine, David soon found a way to cheat the system. As soon as he came back from school, David started playing computer games and set the timer, as he was told, to 2 hours. After playing a couple of games, he sneaked into the kitchen and moved the timer back to 2 hours. So, whenever his parents came home after work, the timer would always be around 1 hour and 50 minutes. When questioned, David told them that he just started playing. With this little trick, David was able to play for as long as he pleased. I played a lot. I played 4 to 12 hours a day after school. Over the summer school vacation, David got his first real job at a warehouse of Cohen Book Distributors as an order picker. It was a brutal job, but the dream job for a hardcore gamer like me. David worked night shifts, which meant he had to show up at 4 p.m. and work until 12 a.m. He received a card with the order and a bin, and had to walk through the warehouse and pick up the right books and put them in the container. After checking that every book on the order was in the bin, the order was placed on an assembly line where other people packed the orders and shipped them. The drawers with all the books ended up weighing 60 pounds, and the warehouse was not air-conditioned, and so quickly heated up to 100 degrees during the day, making it a physically demanding job. Nevertheless, after David finished his shift, he rushed back home, sat down in front of his computer, and played all night long. A friend of David's was working at the same warehouse, and one day, he told David that he had found the compartment where all the dirty magazines were stored. So, David and his friend went there together to check them out. As chance would have it, their supervisor happened to come by and caught the boys reading the dirty magazines. We got into a lot of trouble, but everything turned out okay. Despite the fact that David devoted every free second he had to gaming, he finished high school with decent grades and went off to Dartmouth College in New Hampshire to start studying computer science. However, after a couple of months, he realized that computer science was not the right field of study, and David switched to philosophy instead. At that time, David was still devoted to Counter-Strike as his competitive game. I was a pretty good player, around Cal Premier. Not quite invite level, but pretty competitive within that scene. One day, his brother Michael and his friend Will from high school introduced David to Dota, and he soon acquired a liking for the game. I played Dota for fun. It was my relaxing game. CS was my serious title. Dota was a game where I could just mess around and enjoy myself. At this point, David could never have imagined what impact this introduction to this game would have for his life in the upcoming years. This was the first part of the inspiring story of LD. If you want to know how the story continues, make sure to hit the subscribe button and give this video a thumbs up if you liked it. See you next time on Esports Stories.